Let's talk first about this session, some of your goals. Is there anything you're trying to pass? How much of it is going on offense? How much of it is going on defense, trying to stop the Republicans?
Trying to pass? No. I should probably be a better politician and tell you, yes, we've got all this amazing legislation that I can absolutely imagine Donald Trump signing into law, and I'm just not gonna lie. I think that right now it is about preserving our basics and getting back some of the norms that make sure that people have food on the table, the norms that make sure that people aren't going through any extra layer of stress when it comes to figuring out education for their kids. So right now, I can tell you that unfortunately, I am not working towards very much that I would consider being the progress train. I am working to make sure that I can minimize the regress train right now. And I think, and I hope that my district appreciates that I am being honest with them.
And hopefully the American people regress the Democratic Party's numbers and powers in Congress in 2026, because you just found Jasmine Crockett, who's trying to be the face of the Democratic Party in the coming future, admit openly that I don't got no plan. I don't really got anything to do. I just want to stop Trump. I just want to obstruct Trump, right? And it's in the backdrop of a lot of things that many American people are in favor of. And this is a problem with the Democratic Party. In one motion, they say they represent the interests of the American people and they're obstructing because for the American people, but only Democrats want Democrats to obstruct Donald Trump, which is obvious. But what about independents? Right? And that's the numbers I really want to hear. But, I digress. Hey, Democrats, you can listen to your constituents, but don't get mad when the independents still lean towards the Republicans. Because I've been going through the internet, I've been surfing around, and many people are starting to understand that young people are trending towards conservatives. And I always mention that I don't believe Gen Z kids are more conservative. I think Gen Z kids are just more centrist. That's my thoughts. Because if you look at the actual numbers, there's a larger percentage of conservative Gen Z than liberal Gen Z, but the majority of Gen Z are in the middle, like 55%. And it's like 29% conservative and it's like 19% liberal. That's men specifically. Liberal women, on the other hand, they're overwhelmingly liberal. So this divide, this political earthquake that's happening, I think is being driven by Gen Z men. Because if you look at the Democratic Party, they offer no real solutions for the young people. The last 4 years, Gen Z has changed their political affiliation. They went from being considered the most progressive generation to being the most conservative generation compared to these people's standards. But it has to partly do with something about the fact that, the education department spent $1 trillion and scores only declined since the 1980s. Since the creation of the Department of Education, young people are getting a lesser and lesser quality of education. And you expect these people to reward the party that created that entity? Liberals, sometimes y'all don't make sense. But, I digress. I want you to check out this clip of liberals being legitimately shocked that they're losing young people and that young people may be the engine to future Republican dominance in the next 10 years. This is why I think Republicans could win in the next 10 years, is because of these findings here.
The things you can see here is if you just look at 18-year-olds, 18-year-old women of color are the only of the four that actually, voted, that Harris won. Trump narrowly won, non-white men.
So I do find this part of this chart shocking. I sometimes talk about narrative violations, and I think if we knew anything about Donald Trump 8 years ago, it's that young people did not like him.
Right.
And Republicans are maybe throwing away young people for generations in order to run up their margins among seniors. But if you look at this chart among white men who were 75 years old, supported Kamala Harris at a significantly higher rate than white men who are 20 years old.
That's exactly right.
That's a real shift.
It is a real shift. This is the thing I am the most shocked by, I think, in the last 4 years, is that young people have gone from being the most progressive generation since the baby boomers, and maybe in some ways more so, to becoming potentially the most conservative.
So Democrats are getting destroyed now among young voters.
That's right.
I do think there was, even as the idea of the rising Democratic majority had become a little discredited in 2016 and 2020. I do think Democrats believed that these young voters were eventually going to save them.
Right.
That this was a last gasp of something. That if Donald Trump couldn't run these numbers up among seniors and you had millennials really coming into their voting power, Gen Z coming in, that was going to be the end of this Republican Party.
Right.
And that just completely false.
Yeah, I mean,
It might be the beginning of this Republican Party.
I have to admit, I was one of those liberals 4 years ago, and it seems like I was wrong.
Now, some of you guys know, I'm not Gen Z. I'm a millennial, but I'm the last millennial, right? I'm born in '96. That means I'm a tweener. Like I joke around. I say I'm the generational avatar. I'm the between both worlds. So I have a younger brother who's literally a year younger than me, and he's Gen Z. And my brother is what, 27 years old? And right now, Gen Z are starting to have kids, right? And the Democrats and these liberals, they seem shocked. Like, when liberals say, Republicans care too much about the cultural stuff. That's young people's, that's the young people's ish. The culture. And liberals used to understand this, but I think, now they see it as a losing issue because they're pushing something that many people do not see as popular in the culture. Right. And this is some of the problems I think that I always put these videos out about how Democrats have lost touch, is that we only have one political party right now that speaks to concerns that the people they actually govern actually care about, while the left pretends that they care about things, but actively do things that goes against the people's interest. And I have an example here. I think I have an anecdotal evidence here of an example of what I'm talking about that Democrats tend to do. Let's take a look.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of 2 in Fairfax County. This is my oldest. And my husband and I have a difficult decision to make this fall as he is approaching preschool age, and we are faced with the decision of whether or not we are going to put our child in public school system where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school.
Now, before she finished, sorry. If the people, let's play a game. If the people say, hey, you governing these people put you in power. If the people that put you in power say, hey, we don't want a certain thing, what is the expected behavior? You don't pass that law, right? If your constituents say, hey, I do not want this thing in my schools, don't pass it. Look at what these people do.
Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted 16-0 and said we're moving forward anyways. This shows clearly that they see parents not as partners, but as an obstacle for their agenda. And I have a really hard time looking at him and going, here, I'm just going to give you over to people who do not want to partner with me in how you're going to be raised. School and education is a huge part of a child's life. And early childhood is supposed to be filled with exploration and creativity and fun, not debating issues that are for adults to handle.
Good, but that's why conservatives love to say indoctrination. You're going after the most vulnerable people in our society, children. And you're giving them ideas that they may not be even developmentally able to fully understand these concepts. Like I just learned today, I have a 4-year-old, you guys know this. He's playing soccer. And apparently my son is still too young to understand the concepts of teamwork. But around that age, my son's about to be 5, you want him to learn about transgender ideology. Make it make sense. This is the downfall of the Democratic Party, right? And as Gen Z kids start becoming parents, and some of them are, they're looking at this stuff and they're like, yo, how can you vote Democrat? You can't vote Democrat. Democrats do things because they think they know what's best for you, right? And I have a quote from Thomas Sowell. You guys know, I love quoting Thomas Sowell. And I think this is a good quote that encapsulates exactly how many, especially I do. I see the Democratic Party like this. And this is the motive behind their fake virtue signaling, their fakeness, because I know it's all a part of a game to position themselves for power. The real motives of liberals have nothing to do with the welfare of other people, because if it did, if a county tells you, hey, we don't want transgender ideology, you don't pass a law to push transgender ideology in elementary school. Instead, they have two related goals: to establish themselves as moral and intellectually superior to the rather distasteful population of common people, and to gather as much power as possible to tell these distasteful people how they must live their lives. And this kind of bargain that the liberals has pushed out, especially when you see the results. I just did a video about Bill Maher talking about how he's trying to warn Democrats that it could be game over because people are fleeing their states because they can't live in these states anymore because of cost of living, but also with the cultural aspect of these things, right? You got cities like in Boston with sanctuary city status where they're letting out rapists charged with aggravated child rape, releasing on $7,500 bail and ignoring an ICE detainer. This is Boston for you. You think people feel safe in a blue city like that? Do you think people will like the fact that when you freeze funding, why the F was I funding Australian universities to such a degree that the funding being removed caused a government emergency meeting? Imagine that. And in the comment section, I see some of your comments of some of the people who are not American born or not from America, and you guys get mad at me when I criticize European Union and when I make jokes about how the US is actually holding up all these free benefits that these European unions benefit from. And then when I find examples, don't get mad at me. Don't get mad at me. I'm telling you, US foreign aid funds all of this. Oh my God, why our healthcare can't be like Europe? Oh, our healthcare can't be like Europe if we can get the European Union to pay us for stuff. If European Union was giving us foreign aid, yeah, we can have free healthcare over here. And this is my problem with socialism. Socialism always have to have some type of slave class that it's extracting value from. And for European Union, foreign aid, apparently it seemed like our US politicians was using our money to buy friendship with European Union. The relationship with European Union and the United States of America is like a rich guy that is socially awkward, but everyone knows he has money and he has to buy friends. That is what the current relationship with the United States of America is. So when all these European countries come in and say, America is our most trusted ally, it's always over the backdrop is the fact that, because you give us money. And this is something that I think Democrats are they're not reconciling with, right? Mass deportations are popular in the United States of America. CNN is forced to admit that 63% of Americans favor deporting aliens. That's a pretty high number, right? But like in the example I showed you with the lady and her and trusting the public school system with her child, the voters tell them something. Democrats said, no, we know what's best for you. And this is what led to the downfall of the Democratic Party.
63%, according to the latest Fox News poll, say that they favor deporting those immigrants. So that's a pretty high number. Can you square that with what we just heard from Priscilla's reporting?
Yeah, I think that obviously the president has kind of blanketed the airwaves with saying that all of these people deported are criminals. And given the fact that we, reporters like Priscilla, we have very limited information to who
is crossing the border illegally a crime? Yes. Oh, it's a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor, and a misdemeanor is still a crime. You committed a crime. So I don't think definitionally Trump is being unreasonable by calling them all criminals. And actually, if you want to talk about muddying the waters of migrants or immigrants, you guys are muddying that because Trump makes a distinction. Illegal. He makes a distinction all the time that, hey, I'm only talking about illegal immigrants. But they muddy it up. They go, he wants to deport migrants because you're trying to play a political game. And I think a lot of Americans are seeing through this.
exactly has been deported. The government has not handed over names. I know CBS got a hold of a list of names, but that hasn't been provided to those who are asking for who was actually deported. And there is a difference between someone who came into the country illegally versus someone who overstayed their visa. That's not a crime, versus someone who has no criminal record, no criminal history. And based on my reporting, based on clearly Priscilla's reporting, there are some Venezuelan nationals whose family members, whose lawyers say that they were deported who have no criminal record, who have no criminal
record other than breaking into our country. Right? And this is the kind of psyop game that, the left like to play. This is why I say that when the left speak, it's almost like they're trying to trick you into something, right? And I want to end off this video with this, fascinating guy. I always laugh at his stuff. Elie Mestel, I don't know how to say his name, but he's going to make the argument of why you should remove voting registration laws. Now, the funny part about this stuff is that if you ask an American, hey, should only Americans vote in our elections? Majority of the Americans, I think it's like 70 plus, says yes. 70% says yes. Only Americans shall vote in our elections. Okay, let's make a law to make sure that it is the law of the land. And Democrats unilaterally vote against it. Why? Because I already told you about their motives. That this is the fake moral virtue that liberals love to use and abuse, and now they have no leg to stand on because they've been thoroughly exposed by Donald Trump to be using virtue as a type of shield, as a type of smokescreen to cover up their passive authoritarianism. But, I digress. Let's listen to this hack here. Explain why 10 popular laws that are ruining America. Let's see what he has.
Okay, so like what?
Well, we could eliminate all voter registration laws. See, when Democrats get in charge, we try to protect voting rights. We don't make voting easier. Now, I'm all for voter eligibility.
No. See, when they say make vote, this is what I'm talking about. Like these little language games that the left like to play. This is another thing that, especially because I'm part of the demographic that's trending away from these people. It's annoying when someone is trying to trick you into doing something, right? We want to make voting rights easier. Oh, so do you believe that voting, there should be no criteria to voting? Like just anyone can walk up and not have to prove that they're an American citizen? Like you're actually breaking these laws. But Donald Trump wanting to deport these people, for some reason, you're in support of judges getting in the way of that. Make it make sense. Democrats, y'all not making sense. Everything you do seems to only benefit you. Because when we look at the numbers, if illegals are allowed to vote, Democrats win every election, every year, no matter what. And then you're sitting here saying, we should eliminate all voting laws. How does that come across to me as an independent? You're trying to leverage the game. You try to rig the game in your favor. Doing this is like paying the refs to give you favorable calls down the line. Come on. We're going that's a conflict. You have to make a better argument than just this fake moral virtually. And that's what I'm talking about. You're using morality to mask your real interest here. And I'm claiming your real interest is, you just want to win elections. You want it to be easier for you to win elections. So you want no standards when it comes to voting because it happens to benefit you. My argument is if illegals were found to vote primarily for Republicans, would you be advocating for no voting laws? I don't think so. But, I digress.
Requirements. We might disagree about what those requirements should be, but I'm going to say that there should be an age limit to vote. I might say 16, you might say 18, but I'm not going to say 8. Right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to agree that there should be voter eligibility requirements. But once you're eligible, why do you have to pre-register?
Hey, you're an American. It's to validate, trust, but verify. When you go into a bank and you go, hey, I need to pull $1,000 out of my bank account, they have to verify it's you. Why we got to why you got to sign into your account? Come on. I'm telling you, bro. Anything to solidify power. That's their main motivation. If you just assume that is the Democrats' motivation, hey, as a Democrat, these people only want to maintain power. Everything they do makes sense. Everything they do. Because they're not standing on any real virtue here. Everything's a hustle for the Democratic Party to maintain power. If they have to use fear, they'll do it. If they have to use division, like identity politics, they'll do it. If they have to use racism, they'll do it.
Why is that even a thing? It wasn't a thing in this country at the founding. We didn't have voter pre-registration in 1787.
We had a lot less people there too. Context matters.
didn't have voter pre-registration in 1821. We only started having voter registration, generally speaking.
We didn't have mail-in ballots either, but here you are advocating for, like, come on, come on. Like, sometimes, bro, MSNBC, bro, y'all be doing it to yourselves.
After the Civil War. Why do you think that is? It's because a bunch of freed African slaves were migrating up north, and all of a sudden New York was like, we need some registration up in here, right? A bunch of immigrants from Europe, mainly Ireland and Italy, were coming to New York. People were like, oh, we need some registration in here. If you're eligible to vote, you should be automatically registered to vote, and that is how they do it everywhere else but us.
We're not trying to be like everywhere else. That's the problem. That's one thing I hate about these arguments that I like to do. They love to say we should be like everyone else. Okay, in European Union, they only have, I forget how much less vaccines they have in their schedule compared to ours. Oh, then you don't want to be like everyone else. Oh, some of these European countries, they got school choice where the tax dollars follow the kid. Oh, now you don't want to be like everyone else. You see my problem here? You pick and choose. Make the argument. Stop. I'm done. You guys get the point. This is why Democrats are losing young people. You saying a whole bunch of gibberish and you're not even making any sense, really. You just expect us to go along with it because somehow in your mind, you think you got moral virtue here. You're making cities more dangerous for us, but you expect us to give you more power. Everywhere where Democrats have ruled for 50 plus years, like Chicago, like New York, like Boston, actually Boston too, Seattle. Chicago being the best example. You got some of the worst education system in the world. People are leaving your states hand over fist, and you saying you want this party to govern the country? Hell no. Hell no. And I think that's what young people are seeing. They're seeing that, hey, as much as the good intentions that Democrats sit here and claim that they're for, or we're for these good causes, I think young people are noticing the results. Damn, before Trump got into office, I only needed to make $75,000 a year. A household only need to make a combined income of $75,000 to afford a house. During the Biden years, and during the last stretch of the Biden years, which is 2024, a household had to make $125,000 a year to afford a house. So you made life harder for young people to go do the same life steps as the generation before. And you expected to win the election with young people. But, I digress. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts and your perspective on this matter. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me out in the algorithm. Don't forget to like the video as well. That also signals to YouTube that you really enjoyed this video and more people should watch it too. I really appreciate it if you guys do that. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.